Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we are heading to my happy place, Hawaii. I have been fortunate to travel quite a bit in my lifetime, more than some, not as much as others, but no place has captured my heart quite like the Hawaiian Islands. There's countless breathtaking destinations on this planet that have left me in awe, and so many more that I hope to see. But Hawaii, it stands in a category all its own. And the question is why? Could it be the spirit of Aloha? To help explore that mystery, I'm joined by Bryan Murphy, creator and host of the wildly popular podcast and social media brand, Hawaii's Best. Growing up in Southern California, Bryan developed an early fascination with the islands. After multiple visits with his family, that fascination became something more, a calling to share Hawaii's magic with the world. His journey is one of passion, adventure, and answering that inner voice that pulls us towards something greater. Today, he's here to share his story, his insights, and help us better understand the intoxicating island culture and the powerful spirit of Aloha that keeps drawing us back. Aloha, Bryan. Welcome
Aloha.
to the campfire.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh man, I am so pumped to have this conversation. We're going to talk about my happy place. Man, I think let's just go right to your brand that you're creating and that you have created. Tell us, what is Hawaii's Best?
Yeah, really, Hawaii's Best at its core is helping people discover the best of Hawaii through our website, social media channels, and our podcast. But really, the layer behind of, that's kind of what we do. But why we do is we help people travel with Aloha is really the core essence of what Hawaii's Best is all about. Through my travels to Hawaii, when I had this vision of starting Hawaii's Best, it was like, okay, but why? Like, who? Me? Like, why me? I just felt this driving nag to say something especially for visitors to Hawaii. I'm a visitor to Hawaii. I don't live in Hawaii. I'm not a local. I'm not native Hawaiian. So like, what does my voice matter into this conversation of traveling with Aloha? And what I've found and what I realized is a lot of people had the same mindset that I do when I first visited Hawaii. I wanted to be able to unpack really my journey in discovering Hawaii and discovering its people, its culture, its history.
So yeah, I mean, I love that. And I love that you developed this obsession. I mean, I did too. You've obviously been there a lot more than me. You're far more the expert in Hawaii. But, I said this in the intro, there's just something about that place. I mean, it just leaves me in awe. And when you and I had a conversation the other day, just to kind of, to prep for this one, you were talking to me a little bit about the first time you arrived in Hawaii and sort of what happened to you when you got off the plane. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about that, because I think that was really a special moment.
Yeah, I still go back to that time often. It's hard to put in words, really. Someone listening to this, you visit a place for the first time and it strikes you in a unique way. The smells are different. Your senses are just heightened. When I got off the plane first time in Hawaii, and side note, I used to be just afraid of getting on a plane. So just getting over the Pacific Ocean into Hawaii was an accomplishment, 20 some years ago, whatever. But getting off the plane and the Daniel K. Inouye Airport, Honolulu Airport, some of it's inside, some of it's outside. So, we deplane, we're going to, get luggage and we come across this courtyard. And the first time I've gotten to step into Hawaii's air and I breathed in deeply and it just was this, I can't put it in the words. It just felt so grounded. I think that's really kind of how I really can try to encapsulate that moment. It just felt like this place is different. It's unique. It's not just another state. It's not just like where I live in Southern California and we do a little road trip over to like New Mexico or Arizona or whatever. It's not just like crossing the border of a state. It just felt like a whole other world. It is a whole other world. In that moment, it just felt like a start of a journey, like a start of an adventure. And I wasn't sure where it would lead and what it would mean. I didn't know if I would go back to Hawaii. You know, growing up, I always dreamt of going to Hawaii. There was just magic of visiting Hawaii. It just felt like so far off, and just like, if I could just go to Hawaii one time in my life, like that would be amazing. And going back to that moment after getting off the plane, it just felt like it was a start of something. So for me, I think on one hand, Hawaii is just an incredible place. The history, the beautiful yet complex history of Hawaii makes it unique and beautiful. So all those things I think combine. But on top of that, when you visit Hawaii, especially when you visit Hawaii with people you love, say your family, your partner, the memories that you share and experience in such a unique place are like 10 times heightened experiences and memories. And for me and my family, getting some of those early memories as a young family are really like a foundational of like, yes, Hawaii is amazing and beautiful, but I also got to experience it with my family. So that's like a whole other layer of why it's special and unique for me personally.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, as you're talking, like just your description of walking through the airport, like I felt that exact same thing. I've been a couple of times, and there it is. Like as soon as you get to the airport, it's just, you know, for me, like vacations and trips, like the airport piece is usually like full of stress and just like, I just can't get, but even in the airport in Hawaii, it's like, you just feel it. And so I guess I'm just curious. I mean, you've had a lot of time to talk about this on your podcast and, you know, your social media channels and all of your trips. I mean, what is it about Hawaii? Like, what is it that's so captivating?
It really comes down to the people of Hawaii, and really comes down to this spirit of aloha. You can just feel that throughout the islands.
Yeah. And so I want to dig into that if we can. I want to talk about aloha. So if you've been there, maybe you felt it, but I would love if we could have a conversation about what it means. Can you kind of talk us through what this spirit of aloha means? What is it?
Yeah. And I'll just want to preface it as humbly as I can, because I'm not, I don't feel like I'm qualified to really unpack a word like aloha. And I actually just had a cultural practitioner earlier this week at the time of the recording for a future episode, got to hear him unpack aloha. And I've asked that question a couple times to Native Hawaiians on the podcast, and each answer is unique, but also the same. Mm-hmm. So I say this humbly in what I've learned from them and what I've also have experienced in my life. So aloha, hello, goodbye, love, affection, all those things are true. But what it simply comes down to is aloha is a way of life. And it's really a way in which you conduct yourself and with others. So really at the spirit essence of aloha, from what I've learned, is it's about fostering a sense of community, love, respect for one another. Aloha, it's been a marketing term. Aloha, you know, come to Hawaii, the aloha state. It can be perceived as a soft term, as a warm, fuzzy term. But really, aloha is really a powerful term. It's really a way of life. It really comes down to how you handle conflict, how you handle celebration. It's really the spirit of that, the spirit of aloha.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, it's like, it really is like kind of an all-encompassing, as you said it's a way of life. Hey everyone, it's Scott here. This podcast is a passion project for me because I absolutely love adventure. And it's thanks to the effort of my residential real estate team here in Charlotte, North Carolina, that many of you know as the W Realty Group, that this podcast gets funded. This awesome group of people have unmatched levels of competence and caring for our clients. If you know of anyone looking to buy or sell a home, our team serves the Charlotte, North Carolina market, but we can also help you find an agent anywhere throughout the US or Canada through our highly connected network. When you support our real estate business, you are also supporting this podcast. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your referrals. You know, I think of Hawaii as the best weather in the world.
Mm.
I mean, really. However, Southern California is pretty darn close.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
It's pretty darn close. And we had a conversation about this. Like, there is an aspect of aloha. There's not just the weather, because there's this aspect of aloha that you talked about in your experiences in Hawaii that simply aren't there in Southern California. And I'm just like, that's very apparent for you, for somebody that grew up in Southern California. I just wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I don't like it, but I feel like there's this guard I subconsciously put up around the place that I live. Some of the, drivers, don't get in my lane, don't cut in my lane. I'm probably not going to let you in because I saw what you did to the guy behind me. And it's all kind of like this dog eat dog, just kind of about protecting my own space. And I don't like that. I don't like falling into that trap. And I'm like, how can I bring that aloha spirit to what I'm doing? That's hard. That's really hard. But in Hawaii, you step into a local Hawaiian-owned restaurant, for example, you feel like you've known the waitress or the busboy for, your entire life. The way that they make you feel, the way that they're welcoming, this genuine, not a fake, like, oh, bless his heart, he's so nice. No, like a genuine exchange of, you're a human being, I'm a human being, I see value in you, and I'm going to just love you, even though maybe I don't know everything about you, but I have this aloha in me, this sense of treating others how I want to be treated. I mean, it comes down to really that. You feel that when you go into a genuine, for example, we visited a restaurant on the east side of Oahu a couple of weeks ago. You step into it and like, this place is different. Like, it's just different. The way the waitress, you're just talking, you're just having conversation and, getting to talking to the owner, and now we're buddies and now he's coming on the podcast. Like, that just doesn't happen, at least around here. It's just sense of service. It's a sense of community that is just so apparent that I think I crave for where I live in my community. So it's like, okay, how can I be a spark to that? But it's really hard when people around you don't really care.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes so much sense. Obviously, the weather factors in, the fact that this is a tropical place. I mean,
yeah.
But to your point, like, you have this guard up in Southern California, and when you get to Hawaii, you feel immediately like you can just let go.
Right. Exactly.
And it's that aloha that allows you to do that.
100%.
And I guess it's more of a guess here. I mean, that it's a two-way thing, right? Like, you feel the aloha of others, but it allows you to sort of give it back.
Yeah. You let down your guard, like you mentioned. You feel this exchange of, like, you become a visitor rather than a tourist.
Mm.
If you come into a place of respect, you come into a place of humbleness, man, your time in Hawaii, I think anywhere in the world, but especially in Hawaii, your time is going to be so much more rich and so much more memorable, especially if you're visiting for the first time and you come into a place of just like letting the island just teach you rather than trying to force it and continue on from where you've been, but just trying to get in rhythm with the island. You're on island time. It's more than just kind of like, yeah, I'll be there around 10:30-ish. But island time is just going with the flow of life and not trying to force anything, force an agenda. That's, I think, a lot of where tension is in Hawaii, is forcing agenda, forcing an ideation, an agenda onto the people of Hawaii, when that is just going to clash with the Hawaiian culture and the Hawaiian people.
I mean, I'm feeling some like a connection point, like, cause this podcast is all about like listening to the voice inside that calls you to adventure. And, there's adventures that call us, there's places that call us. Hawaii certainly calls me, but like, I'm sort of feeling right now that this spirit of aloha. I mean, when you're listening to the voice that calls to adventure, you have to sort of let go of fears. There are like things that block you from like going and embracing your adventure. Right. And I mean, I'm kind of feeling this sort of parallel, like when you come to a place like Hawaii, when you go to a place like Hawaii and you let your guard down, inherently, it's like you're doing that thing, you're listening to that voice inside and you're letting that guard down and allowing that, going with the flow. It's like allowing that adventure to unfold for you.
I really think at the core, most people have that. If you can strip away the facade of wanting to have your best interest in mind and go with a sense of serve, go with a sense of humbleness. If you go into a place, if you go into Hawaii, especially with that mindset and that spirit, you're just going to be received, from my experience and from others, but from my experience, you're going to be received with open arms and you're going to find a community. Even in that short, maybe 7 or 14 day trip, you're just going to feel like a sense of, like when you get back on that plane and you travel across the Pacific or wherever you're going, you're going to feel like a piece of you is still in Hawaii.
Yeah, I love this. So, I mean, and it's like helping me kind of like just, again, like verbally, explicitly, like understand what it is about that place that I love so much. Like I felt it, but just being able to talk about it is pretty cool. When we talked last time, there obviously, you talked about there being a complicated relationship sort of between the mainland, the fact that Hawaii is one of the United States, but sort of this complicated, and you talked about aloha being a marketing term. I just wondered if we could kind of get into a little bit of the history over the last, 30 years or so and how that sort of complicated relationship has evolved.
You think after World War II and 50s, people started commercial travel, airline started traveling more to Hawaii, the system of the Clippers, I think is what it was called. And it was this luxury destination. At the time, a lot of the Hawaiian culture and a lot of Waikiki was not taller than a coconut tree, I think. This was probably the early 1900s. As I was talking to Kamaka, who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, the history of Waikiki is pretty interesting, and I can't wait to release that episode. I learned a ton, but nothing was taller than a coconut tree, which was, that's interesting. You see that on Kauai now for the most part. But for travelers visiting during that time, 50s, 60s, a lot of the Hawaiian culture was still at the forefront. You would hear Hawaiian music, you would see hula, you would see traditional luau, and you would get that really representation of Hawaii and its culture and its people were at the forefront. It wasn't until, and I'm not a history buff or anything, but it wasn't until 70s, 80s, you could tell by the architecture in Honolulu, of when those buildings were built. It's got that 70s, 80s vibes. Really, that's when the commercialization, the marketing of Hawaii really took off. And you saw that a lot in late 80s and 90s. Traveling to Hawaii became slightly more affordable. So going to Hawaii was definitely an option for travelers. And I think still is just marketed as a spot to come and just unwind and get in paradise and enjoy the beaches. And you got some hula dancers over there. And we're about aloha, and there's this mass marketing of tourism, which it's the reality. On one hand, it's the reality of that's a lot of the work of people who live in Hawaii, locals and Hawaiians, is working in the hospitality industry. Right. That's just the way it is today. So on one hand, it's like this balance of double-edged sword. Like, okay, how do we continue to market Hawaii because that I need to eat, but how do we do it in a way that is responsibly? And I'd say over the last 5 years, that shift is really, I think, starting to turn. It's still tough, and there's still that Disneyland facade of Hawaii, that kind of idealization of Hawaii of like tropical paradise, the beaches, and the hula dancers, romanticized version of Hawaii is still there, I think, in a lot of people's minds. And that was kind of like my drive with Hawaii's Best of like, because that's where my mind was. Hawaii, like I said, I just wanted to go to Hawaii and just experience Hawaii, and it was all great. But having a deeper understanding of the beauty of Hawaii and how to visit Hawaii responsibly and with the right intentions, I think is important. Many locals feel that tourism industry prioritizes visitors over residents, and it's really created this tension, I think, in a lot of people that I don't think it's as high as it was, but post-COVID, when things started opening up, that tension, people probably saw it on the internet and saw it on news reports, but it was pretty tense when visitors started coming back to visit Hawaii.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I appreciate that overview so much. I guess it makes sense to pivot here. I would love, Hawaii is such a bucket list destination for many people. A lot of people, get a chance to go once in their lifetime. And I've been a few times. I've had some people that have asked me like, hey, when you went, like, where did you go? And should I go to one island and stay there? Should I island hop? I wonder if we could just maybe do a quick, I know this is really hard, but just a quick 2-minute overview of each island and sort of, because each island is so different. So from your perspective, maybe could you just kind of hit a broad description of each island and what people can expect?
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll start with Oahu, known as the gathering place. That's your main island. That's where the main airport is, Daniel K. Inouye Airport in Honolulu. That's probably where you're going to fly into, even if you're going to, say, the big island of Hawaii or Kauai. There's not a ton of direct flights to those islands, so you're probably going to do a layover in Honolulu. You're going to fly into Oahu. And when you're flying in, it looks like a city. It looks like, Los Angeles city that got plopped down and, on the coast. But it's a lot more beautiful than Los Angeles. but you see skyscrapers and you're like, okay, this is Hawaii. Oahu it's the most visited. It's the most populated island in the island chains. It's home to Waikiki Beach. You got Pearl Harbor, the iconic North Shore, surfing spots. All the big surfing competitions. One of them just happened a few weeks ago. It's called the Eddy. That only runs when the surf is just right, and it ran this past year, which was really cool. So all those, North Shore surf spots, that's the iconic pipeline and all those waves up there, which is really cool. So it's got this mix of urban activities and natural beauty. For example, if you're staying in Waikiki, which is South Shore, you drive up to North Shore and it's about an hour and a half, depending on traffic, drive. And it's when you drive through Central Oahu, you're driving through country and it just it's a whole other world, which is really cool. So I definitely highly recommend Oahu for first-time visitors. It's not just Waikiki, and please get out of Waikiki and Honolulu for the day and experience the different sides of the islands. It can be busy. So, expect crowds, especially if you're in Waikiki, and popular attractions, like I mentioned, with Pearl Harbor and Hanauma Bay, which is southeast shore, best snorkeling there. But there's just going to be periods of time when you think it's busy, it's going to be busy, like Christmas, spring break, summer. That's when, the peak seasons are, especially on Oahu and the other islands as well. But any place, because it's really easy when you're on Oahu to not support local. So on Oahu, you have to look a little bit harder, I think, than maybe the neighboring islands to support local. If you have a choice of eating at Cheesecake Factory or a local Hawaiian-owned restaurant, I would definitely recommend going and trying the local Hawaiian-owned restaurant.
Nice. Little
tip, I mentioned this spot that we just tried a couple of weeks ago. We were staying at the Kahala Resort on South Shore. It's just outside of Waikiki, but a 10-minute drive in. So if you're in Waikiki, there's a spot on the east side, probably about 10, 15 minutes from Waikiki. It's called Beachside Kitchen. It is amazing. So shout out to my buddy Kiko and what he's got going on there. They started out, as many good food places start out, as a food truck during the pandemic. So they were, serving on the east side in Kaneohe and doing that. And now they have a brick and mortar
Cool.
that is just really cool. Kind of like this fusion stuff, Hawaiian and the whole thing. So definitely a cool local spot. But there's spots like that. You just have to look and research. And that's partly what we do with Hawaii's Best is highlighting some of those spots. So one of the other main islands is Maui. So that's the Valley Isle. You fly into Maui and you understand why it's the Valley Isle. You have Haleakala as on one side, and you have the mountain range on the other side, and it's like okay, that's the Valley Isle. It's pretty self-explanatory. When I first went there, I was like, okay, that's why it's called the Valley Isle. But highlights, it has a bit more luxury resorts than Oahu or any other islands. You got Haleakala National Park, like I mentioned. Sunrises are great there. Sunsets are also amazing there. So I think you do need reservations there. So just be aware of that. But you got beaches, you got Kaanapali on the west side, you got Wailea on the south shore or the south side of Maui. So it's also one of the best islands for whale watching. Whale watching season is usually like November-ish through March, April-ish. And when we were there late September one year, I was doing an interview at Leilani's on the beach in Kaanapali, and I was sitting with the GM there, and we were talking, and then you just see these dolphins, and you see these whales out in the distance just kind of breaching, and it was like, oh, it was pretty cool. So if you want to do whale watching, definitely you want to hit up Maui. It's best for, couples, honeymoons, baby moons, outdoor adventures. You want to do hiking, snorkeling. It's got it all. Maui is just incredible. It's got the, so it's a bit more laid back, I think, than like Oahu. So it feels a little bit less, I say it with a grain of salt, it feels less touristy in some areas. So you just kind of find those like maybe on the North Shore, it's got the same kind of feel as like Oahu's North Shore. If you're thinking about driving Road to Hana, especially if you're driving the first time, I actually did a podcast episode on this. Like, should you drive the Road to Hana? Maybe consider a certified guide for the first time. Maybe find a small group and do the road because it's windy. There's one-way roads. So just got to be aware, especially if you're the one driving, you're not going to be able to really enjoy the drive that much as like I don't like doing tours. This might be one that you might want to do at least for the first time just to really experience the road.
It's really easy to miss stuff too, because so much of the Road to Hana is like little offshoots, right? That you wouldn't even know were there unless you had somebody tell you what to do. Here's
one tip. So we talked a little bit, I kind of mentioned it earlier about serving and volunteering. One spot on Maui that I would highly recommend looking into is Maui Cultural Lands, and they're on the west side. They do volunteer cleanups, removing invasive plant species and planting native plants in the Honokawai Valley. Uncle Kolu and his mom, Auntie Punani, they recently lost their generational home in the Lahaina fire. So when we were there last on Maui, we visited with them. We went into the valley. We did help clean up. He came on the podcast and got to be able to tell his story, but no charge. It's like on a Saturday, they pick you up and they drive you and you hike down to this valley. And it's just, you talk about the spirit of Aloha. That's like one of the spots that you just feel the island, feeling as that sounds like you just feel Hawaii. You just gotta experience something like that. So
love it.
Yeah. The Big Island, it's huge. Like I mentioned, it's got 10, climate zones there. You could explore Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Be aware, it's not always erupting. Kilauea isn't always erupting. Pele isn't always making herself known. So you might see some smoke a little bit, but just be aware you're going to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. You might not see actual lava. It's still a great national park to explore, hike through lava tubes, stuff like that. You got black sand beaches, coffee farms, stargazing if you want to do that, Mauna Kea, the observatory. So Hawaii is like, you want to get outdoors, you're going to go to Hawaii Island. You're just going to be able to experience all that. It's huge. So driving between different places, Hilo and Kona are like the other side of the island. So it's going to take an hour or two just to get across the island. So just be aware of that. Big Island might be a good, if you're a family traveling and if you have maybe 10 days in Hawaii, Big Island might be good for like a 3-day and then like a 7-day on Maui or Oahu, just if you're able to do that.
Nice. Okay, great.
So I'll just wrap it up with, well, we got Kauai, Garden Isle. I know there's just so much you can dive into, but really Kauai, Garden Isle, it's just lush. Nepali Coast is amazing. Waimea Canyon, it's the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. It looks like the Grand Canyon just on a smaller scale, but it's still awe-inspiring. It's great for photographers, nature lovers. It's less developed, so if you like that option, it does have less nightlife and less dining options, so it's a little bit more of a slower pace, but Kauai is just a beautiful, lush island that you got to experience. The other two, not as popular, but Molokai is the Friendly Isle, and it's got some of the tallest sea cliffs in all the world, which is amazing. This is a good spot maybe for the day if you're on Maui. You got Maui Nui. So Maui Nui is like Maui, Molokai, Kaho'olawe, which was this little island that was used for, fortunately, target practice during the war. So it's you can't go there. So, but Molokai, it's a great spot for like a day trip. And then you got Lanai, the Pineapple Isle, if you will, it has like 2 luxury resorts on it. It's super slow pace, fewer flights to it. You got a ferry usually from Maui, but it's great if you're a couple and you just kind of want to do a romantic getaway. Lanai is a great spot for that.
What an awesome overview. Thank you. I mean, I know we just tried to pack a whole bunch in. Hey everyone, it's Scott here. Did you know that the members of my real estate team, W Realty Group, are listening to their own voices that call to adventure by setting big goals? Some of those goals include planning trips to Bali and the Kingdom of Bhutan, buying investment homes, and running the Chicago Marathon. At W Realty Group, we support and encourage these big goals and want to help turn them into reality. We're currently looking to add new members to the team. If you know a great real estate agent in the Charlotte, North Carolina area that would benefit from being part of our team, please send a text, an email, or give me a call. And know that when you support W Realty Group, you're also supporting this podcast. Thanks for listening. The question of like how to do Hawaii, there's so many different islands. If you're going to do like a once in a lifetime bucket list trip, do you go to one island? Do you island hop? Like, what's your best advice there?
Yeah, if you got 7 days, hopefully you have 7 days I would definitely recommend sticking to one island because as we mentioned earlier, you're going to be able to feel the pace of the island. If you're traveling island to island, it's going to feel like you're going to be on one island for a couple days and you got to get up and do the airport thing and fly and do that whole thing and then try to get acclimated to the other island. Each island feels different and you'll feel it. Hawaii in itself has a feel, but each island has its own personality, its own pace. And to really get that, you're going to need at least, I think, a week on an island.
Love it. So, Bryan, you grew up in Southern California. Like, how did this obsession with Hawaii take shape for you?
Well, I shared a little bit about just growing up and just that kind of romanticized version of going to Hawaii. And if I can only go to Hawaii, that'd be amazing. I got married and in early 2000s, my wife's family, they do the timeshare thing. So I was like, yeah, I'd definitely go. So, we went to Oahu and that's kind of when I had that whole experience. But through those first few visits in early 2000, it just started just wanting more. Okay, are we going to go? We're going to go again this year, or can we go back? So it was like it's like okay, calm down, Bryan. It just started. That's where my obsession started. Was just wanting to constantly just visit and experience it. But that started to get, and I think it feels weird just kind of verbalizing it, but it started to get a little tired. We would go to mainly Oahu and maybe we would do like Kauai, but mainly Oahu. And we had the similar experiences and we do the similar things. And I was like, I want to explore a little bit more, So I started getting a little antsy of like, okay, I want to go do this. I want to try this. And trying those experiences and meeting new people, seeing their way of life and how they live in Hawaii, that started becoming a huge question mark for me. Like, how do you live in Hawaii? Like, what brought you here? Did you grow up here? And, so that just like, I think I'm a pretty approachable guy and I like striking up conversations and I would just get to talking to people at restaurants and at, places where we would go visit different attractions or experiences. My obsession for Hawaii really grew and got deeper into like the life of Hawaii. Okay, what does it mean to like live in Hawaii and how do these people man, these people are like, it feels like these people are constantly serving. How do you stay motivated to continue day in? Like there isn't a day off from tons of tourists coming in and wanting to be served. Like there isn't a day off. Like how do you stay in that spirit of service? That's kind of where the podcast started, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is what's so awesome. I mean, this place that is just so special to me, obviously it's very special to you. And you've taken it from just being like a passion and an obsession in this place that you wanted to visit. So you've turned it into this massive podcast and media brand. And it's like what you do now. It's pretty cool. Like, how does that all happen?
I mean, bit by bit. Yeah. As I look back, when I first started the Instagram account in 2015, it was merely a shout out account. And part of it is still that. But in 2015, I think is where I saw the bug of like, just want to share some of the best of Hawaii with people who might like Hawaii. Like maybe I like Hawaii. It really started with the Instagram account. And through the Instagram account and growing that, I grew another one and another one. This is kind of fun. But at the time I was doing other e-commerce and marketing stuff, just learning marketing, learning digital marketing. And I had that itch to like, I want to start my own thing. I want to do my own thing. I just had that bug. Wasn't sure what to do with it. I wasn't thinking it would be Hawaii's best. I was just thinking, I just got to figure out how to make money online. Like that was just my mindset, I guess, back then. I just continued with the Hawaii thing because I was just passionate about it. And it wasn't until 2018, 19, where podcasts had more of a resurgence of popularity as like, and I was editing podcasts for other people at the time. And it's like, man, I want to start a podcast. Like, what would I podcast about? Like, well, I got this Instagram thing going on and I kind of do blogs once in a while, but like, it'd be cool to start a podcast about Hawaii. So I did my research about what's out there and there wasn't much out there. There's travel agents out there, nothing against travel agents. I'm not a travel agent, travel advisor, just want to share Hawaii with people. But a lot of podcasts about Hawaii were travel agents or real estate agents. That was huge as well. But there wasn't this niche of podcasts about exploring Hawaii. And I was like, let's see how that goes. So that's kind of where it started and has grown since social has grown and the podcast has really grown, which is pretty cool. And now the website is starting to, I think, to pick up as well.
Yeah. So I guess I'm curious for you, like, as we think about this sort of call to adventure, I mean, this was just you following something that you love, this place that you love. Like, as you sort of reflect back over these like last few years, as this brand has kind of grown for you, like, what is that like for you to sort of reflect back and see, like, you know, just, I guess, that kind of recognition that you're using your skills and your gifts in e-commerce and, you know, media editing and, you know, all of your experience leading up to this point to like share with other people about your obsession with this amazing place.
And I'm on a spot where I can look back a little bit. I hope to be doing this for another, 40 years and be able to really look back. But in this little window that I'm able to look back, I think what's really cool, you may realize this too, is that you don't realize some of the tools and some of the knowledge that you're gaining during a season is preparing you for the next thing. That's really what is clear to me back in from 2015 to 2017. I felt like I was just clunking around and trying to figure things out. I was frustrated because I knew I wanted to like build something and create and experience this adventure, but I didn't know what it was. I just felt like I was just throwing stuff and seeing what would stick. It was just kind of like this, oh, what if I just do that? And all the tools and all the frustration that was building and I was equipping myself, I didn't know it would be for this, which is kind of cool how I think adventure works out. It's an adventure. It's not an itinerary. It's not a checklist. Okay, I'm going to take the next step and I'm going to see where that goes. I'm going to trust my gut. I'm going to take the next step here and just kind of see where it goes. That's really how I was being, I guess, prepared to do what I do now, which is pretty cool. So I'm like, okay, what am I doing now that's preparing me for the next thing? But you got to stay in the moment.
Well, Bryan, I think that's a pretty awesome segue because part of the reason that, well, actually the reason that you and I are even having this conversation right now is how you and I met through conversations about podcast production. Very, very excited that moving forward, you and I are going to be working together on this podcast,
Right.
Inspire Campfire, as you help me move into the next phase of the growth of this podcast by helping me with the production of it. So, man, I'm super, super excited about that and look forward to that beginning today with this episode.
Right. Yeah,
So
no, I'm
cool.
pumped about that, how it all worked out. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a future here too. So, Bryan, how can people find out more about what you do, both with your media solutions, but also with the Hawaii podcast, and just find out about more about Hawaii in general?
Yeah, for sure. You can go to hawaiisbesttravel.com/listen, and that'll take you to our landing page of the podcast. Or you could, if you're listening on your podcast app right now, if you search Hawaii in your podcast app, we're usually at the top. So you can just find our episode there. If you're interested in podcast production, editing, how to grow your podcast, you can go to easypodcastsolutions.com.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Bryan. And you have such a diverse story. There's a lot that we didn't even get into. And as you and I kind of grow together, we may have to do another episode to share some of your other stories, which are also pretty epic. But, when people get to know you and find out about this rich, epic life that you have, including all these trips to Hawaii and the spirit of Aloha, at some point there in Southern California, Hollywood is going to pick up on your story, and they're going to want to make a movie about you and your life. And I want to know, when they do, who's going to be the Hollywood actor that's going to play you in the movie?
I would say probably Ed Norton.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
Well, he seems like he plays the unassuming character in his movies, and I'm kind of always in the background working hard, strategizing, maneuvering, and I don't like to really necessarily always talk about what I'm doing, but hopefully the results will show for themselves.
It's awesome. He's strong. He's a strong character. I like him. What's your movie going to be called?
The Quiet Architect.
Ooh, The Quiet Architect, starring Ed Norton. Oh man, that's going to be really good. I can't wait. Well, Bryan, I cannot wait for our future together and working together on this podcast. And I can't wait to share this episode with listeners. For those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. Hope Bryan's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Bryan, thanks so much for being here today.
My pleasure.